نجي هسه للسكند lesson which is the innate immunity. راح نتكلم أول شيء عن ال innate immunity. We're going to talk about an overview. بس لحظة. We're going to talk about overview of the innate arm of the immune system and the mechanism of action. We're going to understand the role of toll-like receptors and other pattern recognition receptor. We're going to talk about an overview of the complement system and its contribution to the immunity. هسه بالنسبة للإنيت immunity هسه خلينا نعوف الأدابتيف. ما راح نركز على الأدابتيف هسه، راح نركز على الإنيت. الإنيت immunity it includes the skin and the mucosa which are the epithelial barriers. تمام؟ the first line of defense, and it includes the granulocytes اللي هي النيوتروفيلز الايزينوفيلز البيسوفيلز. It includes the phagocytes, dendritic cells, mast cells, complement system, natural killer cells وإلى آخره. هسه innate immune response, initial response, it responds to two main things. The first one, when a microbe or a pathogen enters the body. إذا يعني جسم مسبب للمرض دخل يعني بطريقة معينة اللي راح يصير إنه innate response راح تكون ضد هذا الميكروب. Secondly, initial response to injured tissue. إذا الانجري والpathogens causes the activation of the innate response. Alright? Basically, innate response for the damage injured tissue, it promotes for repair and wound healing. And it also stimulates the adaptive immunity. إنه بدون innate immunity ما راح نقدر نسوي activation للadaptive immunity. فمثل نقول إنه innate immunity is a danger signal, provide a danger signal. General features of the innate immunity احنا ذكرنا سابقا إنه it is fast and it's non-specific. It is the first arm to get activated. Cells are able to recognize the antigen directly. وهنا ركزنا على كلمة directly لأنه بالadaptive immunity تحديدا T cells, it wouldn't be able to recognize the antigen by itself. The antigen must be in an MHC protein carried by an APC. زين? So basically the natural killer cells, the phagocytes, كل هاي الأشياء are able to recognize the antigen directly. It is fast, takes around 6 to 12 hours to develop. It is non-specific, and it is even functional even before exposure to microbes. لهذا سموها innate. It is present from birth. وهنا كاتبين no prior immunization needed. احنا لما ناخذ الفاكسينز we are strengthening the adaptive immunity. فبالنسبة للإنيت immunity ما نريد vaccines لأنه هي من الولادة موجودة عندنا و it doesn't have a memory. الadaptive immunity has a memory. الإنيت immunity does not have a memory. فهنا بدنا نقول إنه تكلمنا سابقا عن السنسوري cells. السنسوري cells are two اللي هي الدندرايتك cells والماكروفاجز. زين؟ الفرق بيناتهم انه الماكروفاجز it engulfs the pathogen اما engulfs the pathogen and gets rid of it. اما بالنسبة للدندرايتك cell it captures the pathogen, it goes to the lymph nodes or a secondary lymphoid organ and presented to the T cells or the B cells in order to activate the adaptive immunity. فهي نقدر نقول انه dendritic cell it is a bridge between the innate immunity and the adaptive immunity. فالانتيجين presenting هاي وظيفة الدندرايتك cells. الماكروفاجز هنا الفاجوسايتوسيس. زين؟ هنا bacteria trigger the macrophages to release the cytokines and chemokines. هسه الماكروفاج when it engulfs the bacteria and destroys it, it releases chemokines and cytokines. الفرق بين السيتوكاينز والكيموكاينز انه السيتوكاين it activates other cells. الكيموكاينز from its name chemotaxis, it guides the activated immune cells like the other macrophages, other neutrophils to the area. فهنا نلاحظ المسافات بين endothelial cells زادت. يعني permeability through the blood vessels had increased due to histamine. نلاحظ هنا المونوسايتس exit into the tissue و the rest of the immune cells كلها تروح للتشو to the side thanks to the chemotaxis. هنا نجي هسه على الميكانيزم of macrophages activation. هسه احنا الماكروفاجز there are many mechanisms in order to stimulate an immune response. هنا ذكروا 3 اساسيات. ال first mechanism انه pathogen enters the body. الماكروفاجز as a sensory cell it recognizes this pathogen, it engulfs it and does the response itself. It kills the bacteria. هاي أول ميكانيزم. ثاني ميكانيزم في حالة إنه الباثوجين يعني more virulent وإنه الماكروفاجز are not enough to get rid of this pathogen. إنه macrophage it engulfs the pathogen and it produces a cytokine called interleukin 8. لازم نحفظه interleukin 8. It goes into what? It goes into the neutrophils which are present in the blood. يعني it activates the neutrophils in order to go into the tissue and does the phagocytosis. هسه احنا بالنسبة للphagocytes there are 2 types. النeutrophil is the first phagocyte and the macrophages. شنو الفرق بيناتهم؟ شنو الفرق بين النيوتروفيل والماكروفاج؟ الماكروفاج بكل بساطة يعني are as not as good as the neutrophil in the phagocytosis process. Neutrophils are better يعني better phagocytes, better at killing, more effective. أما الماكروفاجز لا. بس الشغلة اللي تميز الماكروفاج is that it is able to survive. النيوتروفيل كأنه يعني فايت حياته أو موت. يعني يضحي بنفسه. يعني it easily kills itself while phagocytizing any bacteria. The third mechanism for the macrophages basically the pathogen هاي بالنسبة للpathogens that are not able to be eliminated by the macrophages مثل الميكوبكتيريوم اللي تسبب tuberculosis. الماكروفاges engulfs the pathogen. It produces a first order cytokine called interleukin 12. هالمرة ما راح يروح على النيوتروفيل راح يروح على الhelper T cells. It activates the helper T cells in order to produce what? Interferon gamma. This interferon gamma stimulates the macrophage itself to kill the bacteria. وهنا مثال عندنا الميكوبكتيريوم اللي تسبب التروبيكيولوسيس. هسه الماكروفاges has engulfed the mycobacterium but it is not able to kill the bacteria يعني by itself. فتسوي هاي الميكانيزم انه produces interleukin 12 activate the T cells in order to produce interferon gamma. الانترفيرون gamma what it does is that it binds to the macrophage and increases the activity of the macrophage in order to kill the bacteria inside it. As you can see here the lysosomes hydrolytic enzymes kills the bacteria. فهنا الانترفيرون gamma has increased the activity of the macrophage ويعني it got rid of the pathogen. نجي هسه على dendritic cell. Dendritic cell احنا قلنا ان it is one of the sensory cells present in the tissue it is the bridge between the innate immunity and the adaptive immunity. شلون؟ هسه راح يعني نوضح هذا الشيء. مثل ما قلنا most efficient APC bridges the innate and adaptive immunity. There are 4 types of dendritic cells. Classical اللي هي it has the CD11C positive cluster of differentiation 11C positive. This type of dendritic cell it is located in the epithelia, site of microbe entry, role in capture and presentation of most antigen. عندنا plasmacytoid dendritic cells. It is present in the blood plasma. It basically captures the blood-borne antigen. Ako antigens بالبلد, for example, septicemia. There are pathogens in the blood, so these dendritic cells that are present there captures the antigen, moves it into the spleen in order to get rid of the pathogen. وهنا راح نجي على أهم اثنين اللي هي الاماتشور والماتشور. هسه الاماتشور it is present in the tissue as what? As a sensory cell. Its main role is to present the self-antigen and maintain the tolerance. هسه لما تكون يعني self-antigen لما يكون موجود يعني it will no immune response will be initiated. There is self tolerance. هسه the fourth type of dendritic cell is basically activated by TLR and other signals. It has a role in T cell activation. زين هسه راح نشرح شنو الفرق بين الاماتشور والماتشور. هسه خلينا نفترض انه pathogen has entered a body. زين الباثوجين it's recognized by the immature dendritic cell that presents the self antigen. هسه it has engulfed this pathogen. زين احنا بالباثوجين what does it contain? It contains its own antigen. هسه الانتيجين of the pathogen will bind. There is something called the pattern recognition receptor. وينه؟ cellular pattern recognition receptor. هذه الريسبترز إذا any pathogenic antigen binds to it خلاص it considers it as an invader, as a pathogen, وهنا it will initiate the process of the dendritic cell maturation. شنو هي dendritic cell maturation؟ يصير عندنا البي 7 سيجنال، ما ادري ايش يصير، المهم يصير عندنا البي 7 سيجنال. هسه احنا نعرف انه any dendritic cell has class 1 class 2 MHC proteins, right? البي 7 هي يعني اللي يميز is only present in the mature dendritic cells. زين هسه maturation when does it happen? After the dendritic cell captures the pathogen in the tissue, it begins the migration process into lymph nodes. And during this migration, it matures, it develops this B7 signal. فاللي يصير هنا احنا شنو كاتبين هنا؟ it has a role in T cell activation. هسه هنا هذه عندنا two signal. We have the first signal which is the class 1 class 2 MHC and the second signal which is B7. احنا قلنا انه T cell in order to be activated, helper T cell or cytotoxic T cell, in order to be activated it needs two signals. The first signal is the antigen. It needs to bind to the foreign antigen which is held in the class 1 class 2 MHC proteins. لاحظي هنا TCR T cell receptor binds to the MHC1 or MHC2 which holds the antigen. هذا هو الانتيجين مال الخاص بالباثوجين. هسه this signal is not enough to activate the T cell. If it was the only signal, it will lead to what? It will lead to energy basically non-functional, won't be activated. هسه the second signal B7, when the dendritic cell is mature and the antigen is pathogenic, the B7 binds to the CD28. This second signal is what is sufficient to activate the T cell in order to differentiate. زين خلينا نفترض على سبيل المثال انه a foreign antigen has entered the body but it is not pathogenic. If it is not pathogenic ما راح يصير عندنا هذا second signal. Maturation of the dendritic cell will not happen. The dendritic cell will still be immature, and when it reaches the T cell, basically what will happen? We only have signal 1, we don't have signal 2, so no activation of the immune system happens. ليش؟ شنو السبب هذا ما صار maturation? Because the pattern recognition receptor has not indicated any problem. هذه احنا نتكلم هسه بالدendritic cell pattern recognition receptor. You have four major classes. Toll-like receptors for bacteria, viruses, CLR C-type lectin receptors for fungi, NLR bacteria and cell damage, RLR rig-like receptor for viruses. هنا كل الأربع أنواع. Toll-like receptor you have two types. You have extracellular موجودة على خارج dendritic cell, this one, وعندنا endosomal. And after it engulfs, it phagocytizes the pathogen. C type lectin receptor extracellular, والcytosolic intracellular you have node-like receptor for bacteria and cell damage, and RLR. هسه بالنسبة للإنيت immune system احنا تكلمنا عن الميكانيزم هسه مال dendritic cell. الإنيت immune system قلنا انه it responds to microbes and tissue damage. How? When there is an invasion, a pathogen in the body, there will be structures that are shared by various class of microbes. Ako structures اللي هي antigens of the microbes not present in the cells. This will activate the innate immune system and will start pump with it, which is the pathogen associated molecular pattern of activation of the innate immunity. أما في حالة التissue damage, the damaged or stressed cell will present some structures that are not the same as the host cells. So basically the body's innate immune system will recognize this structures and will start a damage associated molecular pattern, نمط معين للاكتيفيشن والى اخره. نجي هسه تكلمنا على الفاجوسايتس اللي تشمل الماكروفاجز والنيوتروفيلز وشنو الفرق بيناتهم. قلنا انه الماكروفاجز are considered the primary sensory cells along with the dendritic cell, والنيوتروفيلز is recruited whenever in need, انه في بالحاجه. تكلمنا عن الدندرايتك cells the four types والفرق بين الاماتشور والماتشور. زين الماتشور dendritic cell has the B7, immature does not have. الماتشور when there is a pathogen or a cell damage. الاماتشور انه the antigen, the foreign antigen is not pathogenic. نجي هسه على natural killer cells. هسه natural killer cells are specific to two things: cancer cells و virus infected cells. They are a subset of lymphocytes, large granular lymphocytes, but they are part of the innate immunity. It is non-specific. Eliminate cancers and virus infected cells. It is specific to these two, but it is not يعني انه مو فيروس معين انه COVID-19 مثلا لا. It is specific to viruses but like not specific to which type of virus. It يعني مثل الميكانيزم مال killing, it is like the cytotoxic T cells using perforins and other cytolytic chemicals والى اخره. زين شلون تشتغل الناتشرال كيلر سيلز؟ الناتشرال كيلر cells, how does it recognize whether the cell is healthy or affected? By the MHC. As a healthy cell would present the MHC, primarily MHC1, which is present in all nucleated cells. Then as a natural killer cells, if it recognizes the MHC proteins, it means that they are healthy cells. But when the healthy cell is infected by a virus, the MHC protein will disappear. With natural killer cell, it will recognize this change, the absence of class MHC protein, and basically will be natural killer cells will be activated in order to kill these cells. نيجي هسه على الايزينوفيلز. الايزينوفيلز كل ما تسمعين ايزينوفيل فكري بالباراسايتس. It is specific to parasites and allergens. تقضي على الحساسية. How does it kill the parasites? By using superoxide, hydrogen peroxide, toxic proteins. It also phagocytizes antigen antibody complexes. هاي الايزينوفيلز. البيسوفيلز هي المسؤولة عن الالرجي مثل الماست cells. It produces three things. The first one which is leukotrienes. It basically activate and attract neutrophils and basophils. Eosinophils. Secondly, it produces histamine, which is a vasodilator, increases the blood flow to the area وإلى آخره. نحتاج إحنا vasodilation. Basically, when there is an invasion in part of the body, mast cells and basophils produce histamine in order to increase the blood flow to this area. فلهذا يصير heat و redness in the infected area. وعندنا heparin, which is an anticoagulant. It prevents the formation of clots. The same things are produced by the mast cells. وأكو شغلة تميز الماست cells والبيسوفيلز is that they have something called the FC epsilon RI. FC epsilon RI, it binds to IgE antibody. The IgE, basically it has two areas. It has the variable region and the constant region. Constant region, it is the part that binds to the FC epsilon RI. هو هذا الشكل. والvariable part, it binds to the antigen. زين. وايزينوفيل has this receptor as well. Okay. نجي هسه على آخر شيء اللي هو complement system. Complement system blood borne موجود بالبلد produced by the liver. You have 25 abundant serum proteins. It has two main effects. It releases soluble fragments in order to recruit phagocytes, which is chemotaxis. It generates cell bound fragments اللي هي مال opsonization وهاي الاشياء. هسه رح نعرف شنو المقصود بها. There are three pathways of the complement activation. You have the lectin pathway, you have the classical pathway, you have the alternative pathway, all of which would result in the activation of C3 complement protein. And C3 will, there are two types. You have C3A or C3B. هسه C3A و C3B will activate the C5A و C5B. شنو وظائف هذولا؟ هسه خل نكتب هذا شيء يصير ما اعرف. C3A و C3B. هسه بالنسبة للسي 3 نقسمهم من نصين. C5A و C3A from the letter A, which stands for attraction. These two proteins, C5A, C3A, it attracts the macrophages and other immune cells to the to a specific site. So it's like chemotaxis. هي مكتوب هنا C3A, C5A recruit phagocytes to the site of infection and promote inflammation. So it's attraction. C3B هنا مسؤولة عن ال opsonization process. Opsonization process especially for bacteria that has capsulated bacteria. احنا قلنا انه اخذنا بالميكروبيولوجي انه الكابسول it hides the antigen of the bacteria. الماكروفاجز تحتاج الانتيجين in order to engulf it. فبما انه ماكو antigen because of the capsule protected by the capsule, it will not be able to be phagocytized. فهنا C3B, what it does is that it attaches to the capsule by a process called opsonization and allow the macrophages to engulf these bacteria. مثل ما لاحظنا هنا C3B attaches to the capsule. وعندنا آخر شيء C5B هي المسؤولة عن الماك complex. Completion of the complement cascade leads to the formation of membrane-attend complex. It forms a channel in the pathogen in order to allow water to enter the cell to destroy it. So C5B along with C6, C7, C8, C9, it forms MAC complex. اتصور اسمه ما ادري molecular فشي. المهم it forms a channel that allow the cell to be destroyed والى اخره. وهاي كل اللي حكيناه احنا.